Hey everyone, good morning. Welcome to the Daily Drop-In, where we are live every single morning, Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern to kick off your day. There is a whole lot going on today. I know a lot of you will be spending your day celebrating the incredible Joshua Stamper, who just launched a book today with the Teach Better team. We're so excited to celebrate with him later tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you mark your calendar for that. We have a great conversation in store on the Daily Drop-In. Evan is with me, and he does a ton to support educators. So I can only imagine the dialogue that we're going to be having. Please make sure you go fill up your coffee cup, finish brushing your teeth, and we can get started with all the good news and conversation we'll be having today. So we'll be right back. Good morning. Good morning. I'm so thrilled that you were able to join Daily Drop-In. We've been waiting for this. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing good, and good morning to you and the entire community. Yeah, we've been waiting and sitting on this one for a little bit. I know everyone's been super busy at somehow almost October already, and here we are a month into school, so things are moving.
I know. And people, starting your morning off is so important. I love that people choose to be a part of Daily Drop-In. You especially, because I know we had been talking via Twitter and made some great connections. We had a Zoom call that was so fun. And now the day is finally here where we get to kind of introduce you to the Teach Better community. So I'm so appreciative that you're up bright and early to celebrate with us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And these days I have kind of a human alarm clock. I have a 6-month-old. So 7 a.m. Eastern, we are alive and kicking in our house already.
Well, that's good. I know we popped on before our live. We were chatting a bit, and you had a very productive morning already. I feel like you should be inspiring our incredible network. Like, you've already conquered the world at this point.
Yeah, I guess, it's parenthood 101, right? The diaper, the bottle, a few emails here and there, but all in a day's work. That's it.
So fun. Good morning to everyone who's joining us. Brian, we appreciate always when you guys are commenting. So good to see you. Good morning. We'll do like a morning cheers with our coffee. Hope you guys are enjoying your coffee. Evan, I would love to have you kind of share a bio about yourself. I know that that's kind of a broad statement, but especially when we had talked, you have such incredible passion for supporting educators. And I would love, if this is the first time someone's connecting with you, for them to kind of learn your backstory.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate it. So my background is not from the traditional classroom side, actually. So previously, before I started Beluga, my company today, I ran a marketing and media agency out of New York for about 10 years and really focused on Gen Y, Gen Z, a lot of social impact tied into that, and really just looking around and saying, how are we setting up the next generation for success? And I feel like that has always been kind of the underlying theme throughout my career, where I believe our generation, right, is let's get down on one knee and have the next generation jump on the shoulders over the fence. And hey, if they're able to benefit, we're doing our job here, right? So ran that agency for quite some time. Worked traditionally more on the university side, then K to 12. Consulted for a number of years as well with a number of large NGOs, really small mom and pop shops. And throughout that time, fell in love with the power of content too, right? How are we sharing stories? My career really started when this little thing called Facebook and Twitter first launched on the scene.
I've heard of it. I think it's some sort of thing on my phone, right?
Yeah, it's cool with the kids these days, apparently. And the kids these days meaning like baby boomers, right? I feel
I was gonna say like not.
Yeah, like completely offbeat on that one. But really looking around and saying, hey, how are we able to share stories and perspectives and really influence others? And that has always kind of been one of those things that I was instantly attracted to. And about 6 years ago at this point, started just looking around the world and personally having conversations about what's going on. Right? At the time, U.S. election taking place, our previous one in the U.S., a lot of groups divided, and was just having conversations with a lot of friends overseas, them asking, hey, what's up with the U.S.? Politics, gun violence, race, religion, etc. Everyone's personal politics aside, right? I think we could all agree the media pours gasoline on that fire. And how are we really providing valuable information to the next generation to give them perspective, gratitude, empathy, etc. And that's kind of led us to Beluga here today. So Beluga is kind of living, breathing ecosystem. We've definitely taken a page out of the streaming platforms, to say the least, where we believe quality over quantity of educational content every single day, and how we serving up students is rich organic content in streaming format that's familiar from different organizations worldwide, like the United Nations, UNICEF, Duke of Edinburgh Awards, really small organizations as well that might protect the elephants in Tanzania, might be building chocolate factories in Belgium, but really focused on that curiosity and creativity first, then syncing over to core subject area curriculum and standards so it could be used in the class, and then finally providing a social layer, right? So not only siloed learning where I'm consuming this on my own, but really able to connect, communicate, and collaborate with peers locally and globally. So there's a lot to unpack there in that quick drop for you. But more than anything, it's about setting up the next generation for success.
Yeah, it's really too bad that you don't have any passion for this. Like, it would really, I think it would come across better if you like actually did something with your day.
Yeah. Right. It's so funny you say that, because I was talking to someone the other day and they're like, hey, should I get into education? Right? And this $1 million question, I would love to hear from the audience on this one too. Like, if someone approached you today, right, September 21st, 2021, what would you say? And my answer was, if you have a passion for helping people, right, and going up against the big giant, which we all are, whether you love the process or you hate the process, right? There's a lot of red tape that has taken place, and it still remains to this day. But changing one life could really make the biggest difference, right? So I think educators, are the heroes, right? I have a special place in my heart for educators. My mom was a teacher for almost 30 years, retired right before the pandemic started, which is go mom on that one, right? But really looking at it from that perspective, it's not easy, right? These days, especially. So my answer is, yeah, we need as many people as we could get here, right? Because we are losing people, and that's a scary part in the industry. And the population growth is not slowing down necessarily, and we really need to start supporting our kids. So, yeah, we definitely have a passion for this, to say the least.
I love it. And it's interesting. This week, our daily drop in theme is kind of focused on revamping our communication. And I really value and appreciate that we're going to be able to get in some dialogue coming up here for our brainstorm bank segment, where we can kind of blend in not only the work that you're doing, the way that you're choosing to foster a platform that communicates directly to students, but then also discuss how that is interwoven in so many different opportunities we have to communicate, not only with students, but with other educators or with other stakeholders. So I'm really excited for all that we're going to be able to get into. We have a ton of people in the comments say good morning. It's so good to see all of you. We have Evan Shorts joining us, and we are going to dive into so many different things as we continue through our day. Evan, today is a big celebration. We have a member of our Teach Better family who's publishing a book. It launches this morning. So we're very excited for Josh. Shout out to Joshua Stamper. If any of you are on social media this morning, make sure to go tag him and celebrate this massive moment in his career thus far. Evan, I don't know if you're connected with Josh, but he's kind of a rock star. We assume this won't be the only thing he does in his career we're celebrating, but definitely a big moment today. So just a reminder for those of you who are popping in, that we will continue our celebration, not only all day long, but also tonight we'll be raising a glass to his big accomplishment at 9 p.m. Eastern. So we have a lot to talk about, but Evan, we have a bunch of people saying good morning. Outside of the work you're obviously doing with Beluga, which we're going to dive into here in a little bit, you shared that you're a father. Will you tell us a little bit about your personal life? You said you're located this morning in Toronto, but I know you jump around. So what does your day-to-day look like, with not only with work, but also where you're located in the world?
Yeah, absolutely. And normally I am on the move 24/7. This baby has grounded us, to say the least. My wife is an entrepreneur as well. So we've been together for quite some time, and I've seen, the journey on both of our ends, and, just love the work she's doing. She's the monster in our house, I say. Like, she's just a huge rock star. But born and raised New Yorker, split my time currently between New York and Toronto. Now that we're grounded in a sense, normally was living on a plane probably every week, going back and forth between cities. My wife's company is based up here, but really just traveling around too, and, come from a really tight-knit community. I grew up in Long Island, diehard sports guy. And I know, like, I was on a previous podcast and we started going into sports. I said, all right, we got to save this for a different theme, right? Like, that's another conversation completely. But these days, really, it's fatherhood that is taking over. That is the number one thing. I think that's the gift that we have throughout this pandemic. Is normal times I would not be able to stay home like this and really see this little guy grow. So it's just been an amazing 6 months so far. But
do you have a sports team that we should at least give a shout out to? I mean, we have very mixed,
Yeah.
networks where you might make some enemies if you shout out a sports team.
Yeah, well, listen, it's not an easy time to be a New York football fan. I'll throw that one out there, and I kind of counting it down the days till hockey season starts. But I'm like a junkie. Like if there's a ball in a game on TV, it's pretty much me glued if I'm not working, right? So that's definitely a little bit of the pastime for sure. I love to be outside as much as possible, especially these days. I find, from the mental health perspective, we need that little bit of a break. And here in Toronto for another few weeks at least, we have some sun, we have some warm weather, so taking full advantage of it.
Mine as well. It's been gorgeous last few days, especially I'm in the Midwest, so always enjoy that good weather. For those of you that are joining us here this morning, good morning. Welcome to Daily Drop-In Show. We're thrilled to be able to start off your morning with so much fun conversation, share some positivity. As you guys know, it is Tuesday, so we kind of flip-flop our segments a little bit. We're going to transition here into our brainstorm bank and end our time together with our good news story to kick off the rest of your incredible day. It is Tuesday, September 21st, and we'll be right back. All right, as you guys already know, this is where we talk shop. And Evan, I know you came to talk shop, so we have a lot that we're going to dive into. Obviously, it's always wonderful to be able to connect with our community in the comments. So thank you for those of you who are already jumping in saying good morning. Got Patty here, Debbie, Karen, Sandra. It's always so good to see everybody jumping in bright and early this morning. Evan, our theme has been communication. And so we're going to continue to foster that dialogue, every single week on Daily Drop-In. We have a different theme that we're able to bring to our community and different guests that we're able to welcome in to be a part of that conversation. What are your initial thoughts when we're talking about the concept of kind of revamping, reevaluating the way that we're communicating? Is there a connection between the work that you're doing with Beluga?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think Beluga is built on communication, right? That to me was always the missing piece in education is we're learning siloed, right? Whether digital, physical, it doesn't matter. Like I still remember when I was in school and, people are huddled around the test like this with one arm. It's what's going on here, right? Mm-hmm. So in this memorization phase that hopefully we're phasing out, collaboration is key, right? And the key of collaboration is communication. So looking at it from that perspective, traditional education to me is the only industry that doesn't rely on communication 100%. I mean, if we weren't able to communicate as adults, all of us would fail. So having students work on their own is to me absolutely ridiculous. You have to have that thorough communication between students and understand, listen, it's not about right or wrong, right? Let's have perspective. Let's teach those soft skills. And I hate that term because those to me are the hard skills, right? Let's talk about empathy, gratitude, perspective, communication. But looking at it on that side, Beluga's biggest goal was taking that really rich content and bringing it to life. Right. And the way to bring it to life, and we could just see it from all of our days outside of the school building, we're glued to our phones. Right. So the TikToks, the Instagrams, the WhatsApp, I mean, we are communicating 24/7, communicating, digesting information as quickly as we possibly can as well. So Beluga really built its entire mission on that is let's serve up this rich content, but let's give students and teachers, experts, organizations the ability to congregate and come together in this virtual setting to begin communicating back and forth, right? And it's not just, hey, let's hand in an assignment today, right? Like it's okay to have that banter back and forth. It's okay to send a meme. It's okay to send an emoji, right? Like we're talking about humans here. We're not robots. We don't have to be plugged in 24/7 on let's check the box on this assignment, right? I think the biggest thing, and it's a challenge for everyone in education, is letting go of the reins a little bit. Right? Like you'd be shocked. And just from our progress over the years has been looking at conversations between kids and realizing how that organic conversation, I mean, locally, forget about it if you're doing globally, but locally, how one student teaches another, right? Especially during these hard times. And I think that's a really key aspect of education in present day and time to look at communication skills first. Once those communication skills are built, you could teach kids anything, right? You could teach adults anything. It's understanding how that passion comes in, how that community comes in, and then making the most of it. And I think on the educator side, the meme that kills me all the time is like, this could have been an email. Right. So I think, we remove those agendas in a sense, right? And those 45-minute long meetings, that's why are we here, right? People are really able to optimize their time in much better ways. So I think communication is one of those things that, is probably not prioritized in most settings, not even schools, right? Most organizations. But the biggest thing, 80%, I would say, of someone's success relies on how they're interacting, collaborating, communicating with their peers, right? Yeah. So I think that's really where you have to start first. But really interested, right? Like to just see how schools are prioritizing this. What does it look like on the teacher side after 8 periods in a row, 3 meetings, right? And going home to a family? Like you don't really want to communicate 24/7. You just want to unplug, maybe a nice glass of wine or something to relax a little bit, right? But at the end of the day, it has to kind of take the weight off. And I think, without doing it in a formal process, but having it so natural as all of us are just communicating with our peers, friends, and family every day, like this is the age that we're living in, right? Like we live more on digital than we probably do in physical these days, which is a weird thought to say the least. But it's just one of those things that we need to really start prioritizing and looking at different forms and what's succeeding and what's not.
Well, and I think that that's an interesting dynamic that I want to dive into further. A lot of our dialogue about communication has been focused on family and how we're communicating to stakeholders and how we're communicating to the people within the education ecosystem. Right now, your specific focus really has been student to student, peer to peer, which is such an important element of communication and an important reflection moment that our network can continue to have on this work. Could you go through, maybe this is a harder question than it needs to be, but what's an experience of a student like? I mean, we're talking about Beluga, and of course it's always fun to be able to promote a good resource. And to be honest, like we just want to talk shop about a great platform that exists. But what could a student's experience look like, and how does communication get woven into the experience a student might have if they pop on to, Beluga, if the teacher assigns something for them to explore? How does that all work?
Yeah, right. Great question. So I'll tell you, and I actually had a conversation right before this with one of our schools over in the UK. And this is kind of, very 101 type of example. But their big project this year is clean water, right? So they're looking at it and saying, hey, we're using our traditional resources, right? We're using the textbooks. We're going to websites that are active. We would love to bring in guest speakers from our own communities, but it's limited, right? Especially these days. So one, how are we scratching that itch from the enrichment side, right? How are we providing deeper learning and content that touches upon clean water in multiple regions? So we have groups that we work with in the States that are focused on indigenous land and lack of clean water resources. We're focused on or connected with groups that we're working with in South Africa that are discussing day zero, right? And what happens if there's no clean water. And it's crazy to us, right? As we drink our coffee and teas and say like, oh, this morning, took a shower, like, what do you mean no clean water, right? But this is a real problem for people taking place worldwide. So our biggest goal is to bring that perspective directly to the learner. And the learner could be an 8-year-old kid. The learner could be a 50-year-old teacher. It does not matter. So one, how are we serving up this rich content first, right? And just understanding, let's really give you a perspective and do it in a format that you're comfortable with. So we want to take that, Netflix for education approach, right? I'm very public about this. We have Netflix envy on our side. It's like to the fullest. And it's not just because we love Stranger Things and Ozarks, right? It's really because how they changed how we digest information, right? Like they took the Blockbuster experience, which I loved, don't get me wrong, like going on a Friday night, let's pick out a movie, popcorn, this is awesome stuff. But they took it and said, no, this is when you want it, where you want it. And it's really impressive, right? To try to really wrap your brain around how we could do that from an education perspective. So how we bring the content first to the learner, meeting them where they're at, meeting the educator where they're at, where we know we're not going to necessarily change the standards and the testing today, although that are definitely, our big aspirations in the industry is we don't have to rely so much on standardized testing anymore. And I know there's an army that are yelling the exact same thing as me right now, which is awesome. I applaud all of you. But then doing so, how do you start providing that perspective? So a classroom in Toronto or a classroom in Chicago or the UK, right? We're pretty fortunate. I could turn on my sink or shower or go to my fridge and get clean water in 2 seconds. So it's really tough to hit from just a traditional lesson plan perspective on what does this really mean if we don't have clean water? And that's where that communication comes in 24/7, right? Where we're able to link directly to other classrooms, other experts, other educators to really provide that aspect of, no, this is what people are going through. And they look like me, they sound like me. And Ray, I'll tell you, one of the most interesting things to me about Beluga's network is I would probably say 30 to 35% of our communities have not traveled 50 miles outside their hometown before. And it's mind blowing to think about. I mean, forget about it now, right? Pandemic is just a wild card in itself. But prior to the pandemic, you're looking at a very specific bubble, for better or worse, right? And it's high poverty, it's affluent, it's different races, religions, and all different types of bubbles. But there's a really big world out there, right? And if we're able to showcase that, even in a sliver, right? I think we could all remember at least one moment from our own K-12 experience where we're like, wow, that makes sense, right? Like, I'm really, really excited about this. And in doing so in this format today, where again, we're all communicating 24/7, how do we start providing our feedback and reflecting and understanding, well, John in this community doesn't have clean water. Like, no, this doesn't make sense, right? I need to learn more about John and understand him. And then not only today, but how do I carry that with me tomorrow, a week from now, a month from now, 10 years from now? And I think, that seed could really, blossom into something pretty impressive.
It sounds like there's so many different things that you've been able to inspire, empower educators to do. And you referenced earlier kind of this opportunity that you've had to look through other streaming services and say, okay, how do we do this better? How do we connect this to educators? When we're looking at some of these introduction to content or deeper dive into content, I love that there's so many elements there to dive into. The concept of clean water, is this something as an educator that I'm pulling up a clip and I'm like, hey, this is somebody that we should connect with. This is some sort of story that I'm able to share in this video. Or is it a platform that does more than just provide a video, but actually provide and foster that communication element?
Yeah, great question. So it is a full platform, right? I mean, you look at Beluga, you log in and you have your own personalized library based on your interest, age, subject area, and location. So that's the first thing. We have over 70,000 hours plus of education material on the platform. It comes from small organizations. These days, more than ever, it's coming from movie studios, documentaries. So we've kind of leveled up in a sense and really seen it come from pretty grainy footage 6 years ago to like you're sitting on the couch watching Netflix these days, and something we're really proud of on our side. But then through the content itself, there's built-in prompts and activities that teachers and students can self-explore, or they could invite their peers to it if they're connected with their colleagues, people in their school, in their district, or kind of those suggested connections, right? The same ones that we see on Instagram, on TikTok, on LinkedIn. How am I finding right? And understanding what she's doing with her students, communicating with her directly on the platform, and then sending her an invitation directly to a piece of content in Beluga where both of our classrooms come together, or 50 classrooms come together, right? And that's beautiful, organized chaos, 50 classrooms. But again, right, like that might be an entire project for the year, or just something we're working on Tuesday morning. So we really want to provide this to teachers and students to self-explore, right? We don't dictate any of that experience. We serve up that giant library. We align it directly to subject area and interests and standards, and then are able to then create that communication directly within the platform itself.
So I'm going to ask a dumb question, because I promise our network always that I will always ask the dumb questions of the group. But like, what? So this costs like $1 million a month for me to figure out. Like, I have to know that, because truly, as an educator, right, it's 6:30 Central almost right now. You're listening to a very, very successful entrepreneur who's supporting educators. You're traveling from Toronto to New York. You have an incredible family. You're clearly very passionate about this opportunity that you feel very strongly needs to be in a progressive 21st century classroom. And yet it kind of, just to be honest, sounds too good to be true, right? Like, you're telling me that I can pop on a platform, not only get aligned content, but really have it be engaging videos. I can now have this social network, which as a Teach Better family, we love, right? We truly believe that you can build connections with people that you've never met, and the majority of our network exists in that way. I mean, truly, how does this work? Like, I'm not to like be the sales pitch, but what's the deal? How does this work as a teacher?
Yeah, for sure. And we do not want a sales pitch at 7:24 a.m. on a
No,
Tuesday. This is easy conversations, guys.
please.
But
I
realistically,
know, right?
we have multiple forms of Beluga, right? So the first one is we will always have a free side of the platform. And the main reason why is we believe in access, right? If I'm able to showcase that access to a district, a community, a country, and they're able to get that spark, amazing, right? We did our job regardless of what else happens. So there's a huge free aspect of Beluga. You can connect, you can utilize content, you can create. I encourage everyone to look into it, right? The second part of it is we're subscription based, right? So the exact same thing as a Netflix, $10 a month per parent, $15 a month per teacher, right? We really look at it from that perspective where, hey, instead of going to a marketplace or instead of staying up at 11:30 and looking at how does this Penguin lesson align to my social studies 5X AB 1-2 standard, which another conversation, right?
Right.
We don't have time for that this morning. That might be a nighttime conversation. But really looking at it in, hey, this is really affordable, especially if you're looking at it on a cost per child basis. The average classroom in our community is about 22 kids. So if you really start breaking down, $15 a month, we try to make this as affordable as possible. And in really where we're working in, where my days are spent, is top down, right? Where district level superintendents, principals, ministries of education in some countries as well, but understanding how do their teachers get access to it. And Ray, I'll tell you the biggest thing that I hate about this industry, and I use that term loosely, but I hate just blind purchases. And that is one of the biggest things that I never encourage. Like, I don't need to convince you, right? Like, that's the biggest thing. We want to help support you and guide you through this process. But understanding, hey, districts buying this to check a box, we don't want to be that organization, right? Where 90% of these subscriptions go in the draw and they'll never be used again. I think that's a downfall, right? And then you have a school and district 12 months from now saying, hey, we have no money, right? And if we're able to understand how are we working with you, how does this align to your subject areas, your curriculum, your big picture goals for your students, right? Like, there's some communities that are really focused on CTE. Fantastic, right? How do we guide their students through this process and introduce them to careers, but also encourage your educators to say, hey, just because you're a math teacher doesn't mean you can't use this science content or art content. Everything is interdisciplinary. So we're really, really passionate about not only just pumping and dumping in a sense, but really understanding our district's goals. And the main reason for that is we know if one student and one teacher is having a great experience, they're able to influence an entire army out there, right? And that's really the Beluga ecosystem.
I love that. And I love that you call it an ecosystem. Truly, I think that it really emphasizes the network component, the element of the fact that teachers can connect with people around the world, not only people within their community, but people within the country, people within their continent, and then worldwide is such an important avenue for us to be better educators. And I think that your continued focus on wanting to provide people with access is essential. And that's something that we believe as a Teach Better team is a core value. And I know when we spoke previously, I just so valued the fact that you and your team understand the importance of being able to get information in not only educators' hands, but students' hands. And as you continue to obviously grow and develop, if the subscription makes sense for somebody, fabulous, go for it. We all have our own subscriptions we pay for. Netflix is a great example. But I love the opportunity that we have here, that regardless of your communication style, regardless of your funding this year, this is an easy way, a free way that you can begin delivering content to your students in a medium that you may not be utilizing, or even may not be utilizing to its fullest extent, which I really, really appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ray, I'll tell you, like, from the Teach Better side too, right? Like, you guys have the exact same MO as us, right? Is looking at it and how do we foster that community, especially during these hard times. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges possible. I mean, there's some districts that are saying, hey, we have to get this content in. We have to get this type of programming or professional learning right on your side. But we're still facing that red tape, right? And we have to fill out this stack of forms, or we have to go to next budget season. And, those are the things that I think as an entire industry, we need to just be better at. Like, it's unbelievable how we're robbing teachers of their creativity, but also robbing kids of their time, And I think that's a really interesting fact is, yeah, we get budget cycles, right? Like we know this year there might be less budget than normal, right? There's a lot of essentials that came into place, and that's a good thing, right? Like let's protect our communities first, because if they're not, none of this software matters. But then looking at it from that perspective on how do we make better decisions? And I think not only from a budgeting perspective, but what programs are we using, right? What methodologies are we using? What pedagogy are we going to? So I think that's where organizations, like both of ours, honestly, and individual teachers as well, are able to really shine.
I love that. Evan, we speak a lot on the team, and especially during Daily Drop-In, especially when we're talking about communication, on the use of video. And this is something that I'm very passionate about. Truly, I'm so confident you know more than me. But this is something I really love, that we're able to discuss on platforms like this, the opportunities we have to communicate, not just through messaging like an email, but to make a quick video and have that be the way that we communicate with our stakeholders. I know in the past, and there's a few blogs that teach better about like creating a video and putting the highlights in the email, but the hope that the parents could click on your video and see the educator's face and hear the educator speak. And there's so much value in the medium itself. But when it comes to your videos on this platform, I guess I just have to know, do you guys have a required length of time that those videos are? We always recommend videos are short, but depending on what you're consuming, maybe that doesn't necessarily fit with how you guys have it structured. So what's the video length? Do you focus on that at all?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So we've gone back and forth, to be honest.
Okay.
Like we started out a little bit long form video, but short form, we know now, especially when, Zoom fatigue and screen fatigue is a real thing, right? Like I don't need to see more Zoom invites in my inbox. We're tired, right, of that. But looking at it from that side, short form content is just king right now. Right? I mean, you could see it in TikTok. You could even see it on Instagram. You could see it in documentaries, right? Like this really quick hitting content performs really well. What we've done in Beluga, to give an example, like this morning, we just got a new documentary in all about refugee camps actually in Syria a few years back. And this group in the US actually went to live there. So it's wild stuff. It's about an hour, 12-minute long documentary. It'll be on the platform probably within the next 2 weeks. But anyway, we're not going to just throw that hour-long documentary into the platform. What it'll break down into is 8 to 10 different episodes. Okay. So, the Netflix type of approach, right? And the mentality there, we'll cut it into pieces and do, 4 to 6 minute clips realistically. But then look at what type of prompts, what type of activities are built into this piece of content itself. And there's no PDFs, there's no PowerPoints. You're not uploading this to any other platform. It's directly in the video, these activities. So with that said, how do you take a 4 to 6 minute clip with these activities, supplemental content, communication? You're looking at a 45-minute lesson plan, right? So it's really interesting how you're able to kind of repurpose content. So video to me is the base, right? Like we're at this time now where if you're not doing video as, your lead, you're probably missing the boat in some way, shape, or form, just because it's so accessible. Not everyone's comfortable on camera. We get that, and you don't have to be. But from an organizational standpoint, we are digesting so much video content every single day that short form has to grab your attention. But the biggest thing that we do is we look at video as our base, right? Where how is this initial video able to spark something different, right? And level up or even level down in a sense, more content creation. So within the platform, through these activities, learners, and I say learners because it's students and teachers, are not only able to respond with their own videos, but with text, audio, image, and drawing as well. So while we love video and why I bring this up, it's multiple modalities, right? And I stress this to everyone. You don't have to be great at video, right? If you want to write a blog, right? If you want to paint a picture, paint a picture. Take this amazing Instagram photo, create a podcast, right? Like we're doing right now. So I think the modality is key, especially to the creator, but then also looking at how this could be repurposed, right? Like our Daily Drop-In right now can be a video on YouTube. It could be an audio clip on Spotify. It could be a short form advertisement on LinkedIn, right? Like you're looking at content and really able to mold it through all these platforms these days.
I love it. And just to confirm for our Teach Better community, all those things are currently happening. So if you are catching this right now, streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, I mean, it's funny, like a lot of what we're talking about is truly what we are currently doing, right? Bright and early in the morning, we're all choosing to get together, engaging in the comments, having dialogue on video. And then we will not only share this out, obviously, on the platforms that we're streaming to currently, but we will like cut this up into clips to make sure that we communicate with, certain elements of our network that want those shorter segments, or use it where you take like a fun highlight from a video and say, hey, this was the key point, and then use this and hopefully foster future discussion. I mean, that's a continuous conversation that is not only quote unquote something you see in marketing, but it's actually how we consume. And I really, really love that we're able to kind of bring in these real world opportunities when we're all sitting on Instagram or TikTok on our free time, and actually bring those into experiences that we can offer our students to foster a more collaborative and dynamic learning environment. I think that it's very, very cool that your focus within Beluga is on the opportunity to bring in multiple types of media into the classroom. Because you're right, short clips and long clips has their space depending on what you're working on.
No doubt about it. And, right. I mean, like our big picture vision is this is what education is, right? Like it doesn't have to take place in a traditional classroom with 30 seats and desks all lined up. Like that's my nightmare right now, right? But looking at it from that side, right, it's like if we're able to understand these short clips and multiple mediums and multiple modalities, right, like everyone becomes an educator and everyone becomes a learner. And that's really interesting to start thinking about is like, where can we understand learning is happening here? Or is it happening over there? Who is it happening from? And I think, teachers are the best guides and inspiration on that to say, hey, we know the structure. We know how to bring our kids from point A to point B. And this new innovative format that everyone is using and so comfortable with, right? Like between periods, we're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, right? Like it's fun. It's not like maybe we could cut back a little bit and get outside for some fresh air, but at the same point, like this is how, again, people are communicating, people are learning and collaborating. So I think this is really what the future of education will be, not could be. I think we're in this really interesting time now, right? Like the next 5 to 10 years, you're seeing the pins start to fall. And it's not only in K-12 education, it's at higher education where they're not requiring standardized testing to get in anymore. SAT and ACT, I talk very publicly about this too. There's a lot of organizations, the big sexy ones that most kids probably want to work for. They don't really care too much about a college degree. They want to see, who are you? What have you created? And show me this in this short form content that I could really see, hey, who is Ray between 6 years old and 18? And then what happened between 18 and 22? Don't give me 2 lines on a resume anymore, right? Like there's a whole world where we're able to express ourselves. And that's the beautiful thing, right, about these days. It's like someone can sit on a couch and become an expert and influence 1 million people, right, through their opinions and expertise and mastery. So I think that's where you start looking at, who is a teacher, what is a learning experience, and where is it taking place?
So, Evan, we're going to transition here in just a second to our good news story for the day. We always love to share good news on Daily Drop-In. We also have some fun holidays we'll be able to celebrate that not only we can celebrate here all together, but hopefully you can bring those into our schools and have a moment of celebration with our students and our colleagues. Before we do that, do you have any sort of like challenge, food for thought, call to action that you can give our community here that has been listening not only throughout Daily Drop-In this morning, but I'm sure going to go connect with you on social media and kind of continue to foster this dialogue around what a progressive, innovative classroom looks like? Anything that they should be considering?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'll stick to the theme, but communication, right? What I find most of the time is a lot of people are intimidated to reach out to any individual, right? It doesn't matter. But I also find all of us want to help. Right. I mean, it's literally as simple as that. We love having conversations. This is what our job is. And I don't just mean Beluga, right? Like our colleagues, our peers, people around the world that might not even be in education. The challenge, honestly, I would throw out is put yourself out there, right? Like these days, more than ever, right? Understand like you're doing great stuff every single day, whether you want to share it, whether you want to respond to someone's comment or video or feed, and you never know where that conversation is going to go. So I would say, on the communication theme here that we're sticking to, start communicating, right? Like we have every tool at our fingertips.
Well, and can we clarify, I mean, I don't mean to like out us in some way, but that's how we connected. We were both on Twitter, completely separate bubbles, completely separate communities. I mean, you're in New York and Toronto, I'm in Chicago. We would have we have never yet seemingly crossed paths. And you just DM'd me. Like, that's all it was. There was no like lead up to that experience that I'm aware of. It was just a message saying, hey, I see you doing things in education. I myself am passionate about education. We should talk. And that's where this came from. You know, that's kind of how connections can work these days. And I think people are very nervous to create that initial outreach. I mean, I myself have struggled to say, oh, is it weird to go to a stranger and say, hello, over here, I do stuff in education, we should collaborate, I like what you're doing. But the reality is, like, it not only happens all the time, but it's how you and I started.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, is that weird, or is it weirder to post about your parents' 65th wedding anniversary, right, to the public? So, like, at the same time, the common behavior is, yeah, I'm going to share my entire life with the world, and I want to get likes, right? Which is such a ridiculous thing, right? Like, we live in this like economy where Ray has 5 likes over Evan is 2, and Ray's post is more powerful and meaningful, right, and accurate now. So we're doing it already. We're just doing it in probably the wrong format, right? Where we're sharing all the good stuff that's taking place, but we're not really communicating 24/7. I mean, like, our feeds, right? I know, like, each of us probably follow a few thousand people. The feed's going like this 24/7, right? Like, most of the time you miss the good stuff. So I find those DMs are so critical. It's unbelievable. I do it all the time. Like, I am so guilty of this. So if anyone's listening today and I DM'd you, I am not spamming you. I promise you on this one. Really just like, hey, I caught wind of some of the posts. I see we have 20, 30, 1,000 common connections. We should probably get to know each other. And if it's one conversation, great. If it's 50, even better.
Yeah. I love that. So cool. So, guys, go communicate. Go reach out to somebody. Evan would be a great one to connect with, of course. We're going to head into our good news story. We got a lot to share with you, and then we will wrap up our morning together as you get into Tuesday, September 1st. Good morning. Good morning. We love the conversation so far. It's been so fun to see everybody in the comments. I know we have Namili here and Megan Wells. So good to see you. Evan, you should know Megan Wells is trouble. She has consistently been an active member of the Teach Better family. And one time during a 12-hour live professional development that we were doing, she was foolish enough to put some green hearts in the comments, and it started a movement. So that girl, anytime she's here, is powerful. I'd love to see some green hearts coming through for our Teach Better community. We have a lot in store for our celebrations today and our good news. Evan, I thought we'd first start with some international and world holidays going on today. Some of them I think could really foster some great conversation in the classroom. I don't know if Beluga has content that supports these concepts, so maybe we could dive into those. Yeah. The first one is that it's International Peace Day, always a good thing. It's also World Gratitude Day and World Alzheimer's Day. So we are able to kind of look at a few different pieces there of our celebration, possibly bring that into our classroom in some way and foster some good conversation for our network, which is always a good thing to do.
Absolutely right. And I see Megan just dropped some green hearts. So trouble with the green hearts. Megan, we probably have to have a conversation too. But yeah, right. It is those days today. And it's amazing actually, because they're so meaningful during this time. Beluga, one of our big key factors is every single piece of content in the platform is connected directly to at least one sustainable development goal. So we use the UN SDGs as really, we call it our real world standards, right? So if you look at peace, a click of a button will show you goal 16, right? Like peace, justice, and strong institutions. But we really understand, hey, how is this content being used in the classroom? And then how is it being related in the community? And, for anyone listening today that is not familiar with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, it's SDGs. I would strongly encourage looking into them. It really provides a great lens into how your students work. Experience in education is really building a pathway for them and their communities for the greater good. So yeah, everything in Beluga connects and something we're super passionate about. So we have a ton on International Peace Day. We work with a few organizations over in the UK that we're celebrating today with it and featuring some content. But yeah, awesome day, right? Like, especially now during these crazy times, we need more content like this.
We do, absolutely. And I love that there's so much here that we can dive into, choose to bring to our communities, and then foster dialogue around, not only within our small school ecosystem, but in that global capacity as well. A good news story one to bring to you has to do with Nissan. Are you a car guy by chance, Evan?
I'm not a car guy. I am a family Subaru. That's about it on my side.
Yeah, I was gonna say I drive a Mazda and it's great. I love it. I don't know that I'm a car savant, but I will tell you, I thought this article was so interesting because as a former middle school teacher, this would be something that I would absolutely bring to my middle school students because it's a little bit absurd, but kind of a cool concept to dive further into. So this specifically is about a Nissan worker who has enhanced sense of smell, and so he ensures the perfect new car smell in the factory. So the car manufacturer Nissan employs a member of their staff who has enhanced senses to ensure its products have that new car smell. It kind of goes into the fact that this incredible man has a master's degree in chemistry and just continues to work with their team to not only be a part of the creation of the product, the car, but also recognizes that he has a nose for the job that appoints him to be essentially like an odor engineer, which I have never, ever heard of in my life. Is this something that you're aware of, Evan? You're nodding your head.
Listen, I've never heard of this in my life. All I'm thinking is I hope that guy's nose is insured. And there are definitely some positives and negatives with that type of position. Ray, I'm really interested. I'm laughing over here. What would you do with your students with this?
Oh my gosh. Could you imagine bringing a sense of smell opportunity into your classroom? I would do a whole lot. You could dive into so many different things with students, not only around kind of like absurd jobs, that would be cool, but also the opportunities that we all have to see the unique characteristics that we have and how that could actually foster into a non-traditional role. I think you could also discuss, how car manufacturing is a process. You could look into all the different companies and the types of jobs that they employ, not only in the nose realm, but also in engineering and so many manufacturing different things. Oh, this could be I could do an entire year on this article without a doubt.
I love everything about this.
Yeah. So
and again, imagine like the excitement from the kid side. When you introduce something like this, it would be a hit.
Well, and I can only imagine especially if I was using Beluga, and I love that we're able to highlight a free resource for teachers. I just think that's so stinking cool. I can only imagine that there is something on Beluga that I could tie into this article, whether it be employment or senses or different jobs around the world. I'm promising you, I could figure it out.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. So this summer we actually started filming one of our real first premiere pieces of content. My brother is actually leading this. Shout out to him on this one. But it's all about CTE, but really from the, hey, what are people doing and what are those wacky jobs out there? So this will premiere. It's called When I Grow Up. It'll premiere in October on the platform. And he's really been traveling around the US, meeting with just amazing people, creating incredible content. But think of it almost as a little bit of, we'll call Guy Fieri Triple D meets micro dirty jobs for education. But yeah, for sure. I mean, like those types of jobs are exciting. And as crazy as it might sound, right? Like if I told my parents 20 years ago before I went to college, hey, I want to smell things when I grow up, right? I'm going to be this expert smeller. Like, what would be the reaction? Meanwhile, that guy is probably killing it from a salary perspective. Like sits in an office, smells things all day. I'm not knocking it all. It's probably a very difficult job in its sense, but at the same time, like it's the curiosity and creativity, right? And I think that's what it boils down to is, how are we serving up again? And I hate to repeat myself on it, but how are we serving up those interesting learning experiences to kids that whether they go on to be, hey, I'm going to go smell things from Mazda or Nissan, right? Or I'm going to be an astronaut, right? What is that seed? And I think that's so important, that little seed and that spark. You never know where it's going to come from. So it's as funny as it is, and I'm glad we're able to discuss this early in the morning to start the day because it's a good foot. But looking at it, right, like it's just that little spark. And I think that's the biggest thing from an education perspective, especially now, right, when things are so hard, is we have to continue introducing these things.
Yeah, it's funny. I used to do a lot of work with my students on how to do interviews, all the pieces like that. It'd be really cool to do an activity where a student had to be interviewing for this nose job for Nissan. Like, how would you sell yourself? I think that would be such a cool.
I love it.
There's so many different layers to take this in. Evan, I really enjoyed our dialogue. It's always so fun to talk shop with you. I'm excited to continue this connection and also hopefully have our Teach Better family stay connected with you. Mm-hmm. Before we end today, I want to give a quick reminder to our Teach Better family to send a massive moment of celebration to the incredible Joshua Stamper, whose book is launching today with EduMatch. We are very excited to be celebrating that tonight, and we're kind of doing the bat sign in the sky, like calling all family members. We need to see you at 9 p.m. Eastern tonight with some sort of favorite beverage. You choose what that looks like to you, but we're excited to raise a glass to Josh later this afternoon with some fun surprises headed to everybody. So we really would appreciate if you would set an alarm right now, document it on your calendar, that we'll see you tonight, same space, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch at 9 p.m. Eastern. Evan, if our community wants to connect with you, the work you're doing, the incredible team you have, is Twitter the best? Can you give us your handle?
Twitter is definitely the best. I'm glued 24/7 on there. So my handle is at Evan Schwartz. It's easy when your name is spelled differently. So it's EVIN. But yeah, reach out, connect. I love having these conversations. And feel free to check out Beluga too, right? It's beluga.org. It's a free platform. And, we encourage and look forward to everyone learning about the world with the world.
So cool. Thanks for everybody who was able to join us this morning, or even if you're listening after the fact as an episode of Teach Better Talk podcast. We appreciate you being here. Please enjoy your last sip of coffee, and we wish you nothing but an incredible, incredible Tuesday. So thanks, guys.